Today I'm going to show you how to make the excellent German Christmas treat, Stollen, filled with rum-soaked dried fruits and a roll of marzipan. Oh my. Don't you feel your Christmas spirit being recharged? Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. Today I'm going to show you how to make Sourdough Stollen. Stollen is a delicious German Christmas bread made with an enriched dough. It's filled with various dried fruits that are soaked in rum or brandy and usually filled with a roll of marzipan or almond paste. Stollen has a long and illustrious history dating all the way back to 1545 at the Council of Trent, where it was baked for the first time as a Christmas bread. It was made with oil instead of butter because of the Advent season. It was the time of fasting, and that meant butter wasn't allowed. In the 15th century, the prince-elector Ernst and his brother Duke Albrecht decided that it was better to use butter, mainly because oil was really expensive to make. So they petitioned the Pope to use butter in Stollen, but it took 5 popes and 40 years before it was finally granted. In 1490, the Pope Innocent VIII sent a letter known as the butter letter. Butter. So the prince-elect allowed him to use butter for free, but only for his family and household. Everybody else had to pay a 20th of a gulden to use butter. The bread that you know today is sweeter than its predecessors, but the dough is still fairly unsweetened. If you're new to this channel, I bake a lot of sourdough bread and I make delicious food from all over the world. My goal is to show you how to get the most out of every ingredient, and I want to teach you how to do that in simple and understandable steps. So join me by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. The dough that we're making today is enriched with butter and milk, which makes for a softer crust and crumb. The flour choice is all-purpose flour for a more tender crumb. The levain is a sweet levain with a lower hydration. It's important that it's used at its peak as to not get a sour taste in the final bread. The inoculation is 50% to help the bread rise quicker, again to control the taste. For the dried fruit, I used raisins, sultanas, sweet cranberries, and apricots. You can use any dried fruits that you like. Commonly, candied orange and lemon peel is added, but I chose to shake it up a bit and add actual zest. I love the zing that it gives, but feel free to use candied if that's your jam. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a Patreon. You can also buy some merch or use the links in the description for tools and ingredients. Thank you. Those were the words. This is the recipe. The written recipe is linked in the description. You have to press the More button to see it. The night before making the Stollen, you should mix the levain. 250 grams or 1 3/4 of all-purpose flour, 10 grams or 2 teaspoons of sugar, 250 grams or 1 cup of stirred down mature 100% hydration starter, 120 grams or half a cup of milk. Mix it until it comes together. Then dump it out on the counter. Knead it until everything is completely combined. Then put the starter in a jar and let it grow to about twice the size. It took about 12 hours for my levain at around 21 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. You should also soak the dried fruit so it can get good and plump. To a small bowl add 100 grams or 3½ ounces of sultanas, 100 grams or 3½ ounces of raisins, 100 grams or 3½ ounces of finely chopped apricots, 60 grams or 2 ounces of dried sweet cranberries. Then add 100 grams or half a cup of spiced rum. If you don't want the bread to be alcoholic in any way, you can just use water instead. Mix them up and cover them and leave them until you need them. The next morning, it's time to make the dough. Add the entire starter to a bowl. Then add 40 grams or 1/5 of a cup of granulated sugar, 10 grams or 2 teaspoons of table salt. Then add 250 grams or 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 50 grams or 1/5 of a cup of milk. Mix until it comes together. Then dump it out on the counter and knead it until all the flour has been hydrated. The dough will seem very dry at this point. Put it in a bowl, cover it, and let it rest for 1 hour. Then take 150 grams or 1/3 of a pound of butter out of the fridge and cube it. When the hour's up, knead the butter into the dough. Let the dough rest on the counter for about 15 minutes. While the dough is resting, sieve the dried fruit and pat it dry with kitchen paper. Also, zest 3 oranges and 2 lemons and put it in a bowl. And chop 40 grams or 1½ ounces of blanched and de-skinned almonds finely. When the dough is rested, press the dough out into a rectangle. Then add 1/3 of the zest, a third of the almonds, and 1/3 of the fruits. Roll up the dough. Whoops. And then knead it until everything has been kneaded in properly. Continue 2 more times until you have a nice dough with both fruit, almonds, and zest inside. Put the dough into a proofing container. Then let the dough rise until it's almost doubled. It took about 6 hours for my dough at 21 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. When the dough is ready, Divide 250 grams or 9 ounces of marzipan into 2 and roll them out into cylinders of about 25 centimeters, 10 inches length. Then grab the dough and divide it into 2 equally sized pieces. Then tease one of the pieces into a roundish rectangle of about 30 times 20 centimeters, 12 times 8 inches. Using a rolling pin, make an indentation the long way in the middle of the dough. Add the marzipan roll and fold the dough over, and then seal up the dough with the palm of your hand. Add the dough to a parchment-lined cookie sheet. Shape the other piece of dough the same way. Cover them both with plastic wrap and let it proof somewhere warm for an hour. I used my oven set to 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. After the hour is up, remove the doughs and heat the oven to 170 degrees Celsius, 340 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have fan assist, use it. If not, you probably have to turn the cookie sheet around about halfway through the bake. When the oven is warm, add it to the oven and bake for 45 minutes. When there's about 15 minutes left, mine was getting a bit brown on the top, so I covered it with aluminum foil for the rest of the bake. About 5 minutes before it's baked, melt 50 grams or 3.5 tablespoons of butter. I used my microwave. When the stollen is baked, grab it from the oven and put it on a wire rack. Brush both of them with melted butter. Leave them to soak for about 5 minutes and then dust them with confectioner's sugar. Add as much as you find appropriate. Now leave it to cool and it's ready to eat. Some say you need to wrap it up in tin foil and leave it for a week, but seriously, are you gonna wait a week to eat this? I'm gonna cut this sucker so you can see how it looks in a cross cut. And then I may eat it while you watch this B-roll. Are you still here? Watch B-roll.
Holy smoke! Doesn't that just look good? While it may not be a normal Christmas treat, I think you should try and make this because it's absolutely delicious. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.